I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. We are spending the show today with one of our city's most interesting citizens. George Rowe has had many lives. He's been a Christian music recording artist with a big publishing deal. He's been an attorney, now heads the Nashville office of Compass Realtors. He's a real estate guy. Relevant to our NextAge series on romance and intimacy, he's also lived the life of the stereotypical American family, wife, kids, until something had to change, which we'll get into. Welcome to This is Nashville, and thank you for being willing to talk about more of your story than you might share, at a business lunch or something.
Thank you, Blake. It's great to be here.
Obviously, so much has changed for you in the second half of life. I don't mean to make you sound like an old man. You're mid-50s, but can you start out by taking us back to Malibu? This scene, you were being wined and dined at Pepperdine University, where you went to law school. They'd offered you this job as vice president of the law school. You're driving around what was going to be your family's new beachside community, Malibu of all places, and your wife was like, "What is wrong with you? Why aren't you more excited?"
Yeah, we had spent a weekend there, and I was just coming out of another career in the Christian music business. It was a high-profile career where I was, and it felt like I was living in a fishbowl a lot. And I loved my time at Pepperdine. I went to undergrad and law school there, and then worked for the university for many years after law school in the legal department. And my wife knew I loved all things Malibu, all things Pepperdine. But at the end of the weekend, she asked, "What is going on?" We're sitting at a restaurant that sadly is no longer there. It was lost in the fire, the Palisades fire, the real inn. On our way back to LAX, she said, "What's wrong? It's like you're not here. You're not excited about this. This is an incredible opportunity. The compensation package, college paid for all three kids, whether it's here or reciprocity elsewhere. It's top of the org chart. Just a really interesting life. Like, what's going on?" And I just looked at her and thought, and said, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. And she said, "Can't do what?" I said, "I can't continue to live in this high profile kind of life. Why not?" "Well, I'm gay." She was like, "What?" I said, "I'm gay. I'm sorry. I've always known it since I was a kid. Growing up Church of Christ, you just taught that you can't live that way, and there were no examples of it in my life or on TV. And I thought the right thing to do was to just pretend and go through life white-knuckling it and pretending to be something I'm not. And don't regret any of that. I mean, I had a wonderful life. I love my ex-wife, Merritt, and so thrilled I have kids. But I just wanted to be transparent and be authentic and stop being disingenuous and not even wanting a divorce because I took my vows very seriously. I just wanted to be transparent with her.
Yeah.
And that opened the door to it a lot.
So, what actually happened? Were you just like, "Well, I'm not gonna take this job. I'm not." What practically happened in those days and weeks after?
Yeah, I said, in light of this, our life is going to be very precarious.
Wait, so after it came out, which you were not planning?
Yeah, impromptu.
You're just like, "Well, that's going to change everything from here forward."
Yeah, I hadn't planned that at all. It was very impromptu. It was just a guttural reaction where she caught me and pulled out something that needed to be pulled out. And I made the decision right then and there that, in light of how precarious our life is likely going to be, that uprooting us from Nashville back to Malibu is probably not the best route. So,
so what did you all try? I mean, it sounds like you all actually tried to stay together even or see, conversion therapy?
I did conversion therapy, 3 or 4 different therapists, and it was terrible. It was just, one person hit on me, grabbed my leg, and asked what I was into.
At conversion therapy?
During a therapy session,
Well, it's interesting because even in this would have been, 20 years ago or so, and even since then, I don't think a lot of people are saying any good things about conversion therapy, of course.
I don't know any good things to say about it. I would catch them, and when I would ask them how they're processing their own, because they all also had same-sex attraction.
Yeah.
And I would ask them, like, how do you manage it? How do you deal with it? How do you live authentically? Are you being truly honest with your spouse? When you see a good-looking guy walking by, does it catch your attention? Do you allow yourself a 5-second rule? Do you think nothing of it? Do you go home and confess to your wife, "Hey, I saw a hot guy and I just kind of lost it for a while, but everything's under control"? Are you truly satisfied with your wife? Like my dad is straight, and there's no way in the world he could fake being gay and act to be satisfied. How do you, as a gay man who's electing to stay in a marriage, are you truly satisfied? And I would catch them, well, when you put it that way, no. And like, well, I don't want this. I'm trying to figure out how to manage this. And I did that for years, and we did marriage counseling and family therapy. And
Are you saying you're asking that question almost like, all right, what's this road going to be like? Can it be?
yeah,
Is this something that I will change, or is it just
Yeah.
more white knuckling, just
Yeah.
grab harder?
and that was the case with them, with everyone I found. There was one I remember meeting with saying, I've never found myself lusting after a guy, and as we're talking, I could see him checking out a guy that was walking by. He was like this Tom Selleck, sexy shirt was unbuttoned. I can understand why he was looking at it, but be authentic. Don't lie to me and say you've never fancied a guy when you're literally checking him out during a therapy session in the Starbucks right now. So that wasn't for me. Wasn't for me.
What ended up being the fallout for the family? I mean, I'm guessing that it was ugly.
It was traumatic. It was sad. It sent us all into a downward spiral for many years. It impacted my relationship with my wife, with my kids. I spiraled downward personally. I just didn't have the tools. I wasn't equipped to how to navigate this. I felt like a complete failure. I went into a depression. I drank too much for several years just to numb the pain, and just professionally, financially, personally spiraled downward, which just exacerbated things for everybody. And it was several years of wading through that. And it was difficult. We're through it now.
Yeah. Well, and we'll talk about that. But what on the professional side? Like, so this wasn't just your family. You I mean, I guess you weren't going to have this Christian music career, which we'll talk about coming up, and you weren't going to go work at Pepperdine. I don't know how they feel about it now, but I don't know that they would have hired gay professors at the time.
I don't think they would have.
So yeah, how were you left to fend?
I stumbled and fumbled, took odd jobs in tech for a little bit. I worked at MTV and CMT for a little while. And eventually got into real estate, which is a crazy story. A friend who's a wealthy young widow with a 4,000 square foot penthouse and condo in Destin, Florida, and a 12,000 square foot home in Nashville, along with other properties around the world. About 15 or 20 years ago, both homes were struck by lightning on the 4th of July. Which was crazy.
Not a great sign.
And she called me and said, "You're not going to believe what happened, but my house in Florida was struck. The house in Belmead was struck. And the lightning strike in Belmead ruined everything electronic in the house. And the lightning strike also turned on her steam shower, which was the size of a car wash. And the steam shower ran for a month while she was in Florida.
Oh my gosh.
And so it turned into a moldy rainforest inside this place. And so she asked me if she could hire me to renovate Florida, demolish Belmead and rebuild it, and manage both very complex insurance claims, and just call her in 2 years when it's done. And I said, I can tell you all about the law and music, but I know nothing about construction or interior design or anything like that. She said, just manage it. You're so meticulous. And so we hired a contractor, and I managed the project and got my hands dirty. And at the end of the day, had this beautiful multi-million-dollar home that she no longer wanted. She's like, I'm tired, I'm bored. I want to sell this. And she had a broker open house, and her agent and she wanted me present because I knew the house better than anybody, knew it better than she did, knew it better than her agent did. And so I'm there showing the heck out of this house with such fervor and passion because it's like my baby at this point.
Right.
And all the other realtors who sell in this high demographic are like, who the hell is this guy? We've never seen him before. And how is he showing this house with such conviction? Like I'm showing them how the $130,000 electronic stuff works. And her agent said, you're really good at this. You need to get your license to come to work. And so I got into real estate.
Well, people get to real estate in a bunch of different ways. Not always.
2 lightning strikes is what got me into it.
Yeah. I'm Blake Farmer. This is Nashville. Our guest is George Rowe. So when would you say you began living as a gay man? Because I'm guessing coming out to your wife is not really probably when that starts.
No, it wasn't then. I remember she encouraged me, she of all people encouraged me to come out to my dad. And my mom had just died 6 months earlier. And I was afraid to come out to my dad or anybody because I grew up hearing my dad say things like, fairies are going to hell and fairies should be banished to an island. Which
that
is
was the word that he would use.
Fairies, yeah, which is one of the many reasons I'd elected to just stay in the closet. But I felt like I needed to tell him, and I was scared to death to tell him. And he was lovely. He said, gosh, I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. I had no idea. This doesn't change a thing. I love you. You're my son. It doesn't matter. And I'm really sorry. And which just made me feel so great about him. And I also told him, I said, Dad, you know how you used to say that fairies should be banished to an island? Because, yes, I'm so sorry for saying that. I said, no. Think about that. Do you know how fabulous that island would be? Like, there would be beautiful landscaping and beautiful architecture and great restaurants and theater, and Dad, literally zero crime. I'm going to start a gay island and name it after you. That's not what I meant. But it was a slow coming out process to people. And at first I was trying to control the narrative, and I had this mental list of who all knew, which got to be just pointless and worthless and too time consuming. So it was probably not. Well, I remember being at a football game, a Titans game actually, with some friends, Ed and Kim. And Kim said, so, now that you're single, what's it like? Are you getting out there? Are you meeting guys? How are you doing it? It's like, I don't know how to do this. I feel like I'm fumbling. I haven't dated since the 80s, and it was women, and now it's men. And like, do I go to singles bars? And she's like, well, first of all, they're not called singles bars, so they're just called bars. I was like, oh, right. And she's like, this is the Regal Beagle from Three's Company. Like, just go to a bar and talk to somebody. And then she also asked, have you heard of these apps? I was like, no, what are apps? Well, they have these apps. There's one called Grindr, and if you download it, it just automatically identifies who around you is gay, which I didn't know any better. That's not how they work.
And maybe Grindr
like,
didn't have the rep it does now.
Yeah, and also it's not like we all have chips in us where the app automatically identifies who's gay. You have to be logged in and registered and all that stuff. But I didn't know. So it was just kind of funny looking back at the stupid fumbling things that I went through. And a lot of those apps are about fast food, immediate delivery. And my profile was super nerdy. It was like, I love NPR and New York Times crossword puzzle and CBS Sunday Morning. And my ideal weekend is a screened-in porch with a fire burning and wood-burning fireplace, like not what the typical Grindr demographic is looking for.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my kids' classmates was actually on and saw me and said, oh, my God, Mr. Rowe, is that you? I've always dreamed of... Like, oh my God.
One of your child's friends was on Grindr and saw your profile.
Yeah. And it didn't occur to me who all would be on this app. So I deleted it right away and realized that's not
how this is going to go.
Yeah.
Well, how did you start to, I could see living the way you did with these feelings, but thinking that I need to, find a woman and dating in that way is going to feel very different to get back into the dating scene.
Yeah.
For other men. What did you end up doing?
Friends would set me up, or I'd meet somebody at a party, or there were other apps that you could try that were more aligned with me and with what I was looking for, and kissed a lot of frogs along the way.
Yeah.
And it was fun and depressing and scary, and a lot of what I was going through later in life is stuff that straight people went through and worked through when they were in their teenage years and college years, the heartbreak, the first heartbreak. And
because you'd never really had that kind of love that felt true to your heart.
Yeah. Any girlfriend I had in high school or college just felt like it felt like it was suffocating, like this is not right. And I never felt those fireworks and
So a breakup was like, interesting.
Yeah.
So really, and again, I don't want to make light of your long relationship with your wife, but you're saying that you really hadn't experienced true heartbreak or even that same kind of romantic love.
Yeah. And when I became single again, I felt like very much like a juvenile, like stumbling my way through on how to figure out and what feelings were. And I felt like an idiot at times as a guy in my 40s, feeling heartbroken over somebody. Like, oh, I'm 40, I shouldn't be sad. I shouldn't be crying and curling up watching Grey's Anatomy because I'm sad. But I did that.
We're going to talk more coming up about how you got into Christian music and your Church of Christ upbringing, which I share. But I've got to say, and it's just because this is the water I was raised in, I know quite a few George Rowe kind of stories, married, had kids, like, hey, this is not me. I'm gay.
Yeah.
I mean, can list people that we have gone to church with, you and I.
Yeah.
What explains that?
Oh, I think it's the culture of, especially in the Church of Christ, the culture of it not, well, first of all, it not even being discussed. There's just presumption that those 6 or 7 verses that address it are to be taken literally, and it's just not even spoken about or wrestled with or tackled or addressed. I will give Otter Creek Church of Christ credit. When I came out, I remember going to the once a month elders meeting, and it was 15 white, conservative, straight Church of Christ Southern men, and I respected them and said, "Hey, my wife and I are going through this. I'm likely not going to continue to go here, but she will, and I want you to just love her and nurture her and shepherd her." And I just kind of sat back and waited for a reaction, and they all burst out in tears, saying, "My God, we've never had anybody be so authentic with us before." And they came up and formed a circle around me and laid hands and prayed and were crying and asked me to forgive them on behalf of the Church of Christ. And I said, you guys could be a place where, in the same way that you're offering dating advice for kids in the youth group or singles groups, you can offer that to gay folks. And I know that there are so many gay people here at this church that have secretly said, "No way, me too, George. How are you doing this?" There are churches here in Nashville that are welcoming and open and give guidance. Like, you can be that church. I encourage you to at least just study it, because nobody's discussed it from the pulpit or from a classroom. Just talk to the Amy Jill Levines on the left and people on the right, and just have an open discussion about it and see where you land. And they did. They called me one day and said, "Hey, we took your advice. We're going to see Amy Jill Levine. We're in the Otter Creek van. We're coming by to pick you up, and we're going to this lecture."
They took you with them?
Yeah, so I'm in this van with full of straight Christians, Church of Christ men. And it's funny, Amy Jill Levine knew a lot of them, and we walked into the auditorium, and Amy Jill just stopped and said, "What are you guys doing?"
Yeah, she's
here?"
a divinity professor at Vanderbilt who I love and hope to have on for an interview just like this sometime soon. All right, well, we need to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to kind of dive into your Christian music era. When we come back, George Rowe, will sing to us, although we won't make him do it live. He would. I'm sure he would. Stay with us. We're with George Rowe. This is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. All right, how many realtors in this town are former musicians? I mean, it's probably a pretty big number. But our guest today is among them, though his story has more twists and turns than most of those tales. George Rowe finished up law school, promptly got into a recording contract with Christian music icon Michael W. Smith. There were some other steps in there, I think, and she can correct me. But George Rowe, what were you doing in law school if you wanted to be a musician?
My parents saved a homework assignment that I got in 2nd grade, and the question was, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said 3 things: a lawyer, a singer with a song on the radio, and in real estate.
No, you did not.
I did. And my dad still has that piece of paper. I wish I could show it to you.
What did kids even know about real estate?
I didn't know it. That's why I just said in real estate. I didn't know if it meant buy, own, sell. I didn't know what it meant. I just wanted to be in real estate. So that was always a dream. The music thing was just one of those dreams that every kid has about, becoming an astronaut or a professional baseball player. That never happens to someone like me from the setting I grew up in. Like, crazy good stuff just doesn't happen like that.
And you're saying that because you've fairly humble beginnings.
Yeah. A small town in New Jersey, lower blue collar family, lower middle class. And I was the first person in the family to go to college, let alone law school, which felt like if I have that opportunity and I got a scholarship to go to both,
I see.
Then I need to take advantage of that. But always
not take a risk and get into music or something.
Yeah, but always dreamed of it. And specifically, there's a producer out there named David Foster who I just worship the ground he's walked on since I was a kid. He's produced, the Whitney Houston "I'll Always Love You," the Bodyguard soundtrack, and Barbra Streisand and Cher and Madonna, and discovered Celine Dion and produced most of her big hits, and Josh Groban and Mike Bublé and Elton John. And he's won 16 Grammys, and After the Love Is Gone by Earth, Wind and Fire. Just a huge producer. And I just wanted to catch a glimpse of him at some point. Well, I ended up getting a phone call from him because he heard a demo of mine saying, "Is this you singing?" And there's some long stories that I'll cut out. But But anyway, I ended up getting to work with him for 5 years and recording an album with him, and with people like the Bee Gees singing background vocals on my album, and Take Six, and getting to hang out and work with Celine and Whitney and Elton John and Streisand and Cher and Madonna, and just this world that somebody like me from my humble beginnings doesn't get to do.
Yeah.
So that was actually the first step of several years out of law school. And at that point, I was writing my own music and writing music for other artists and movie soundtracks, and ended up getting another record deal with Michael W. Smith here in Nashville, and a publishing deal with BMG, and William Morris picked me up.
Well, let's listen to a little bit of that music. I don't know how you feel, turning back the clock and listening to things, but...
Do you remember the days of answer machines, and you could hear your own voice on your outgoing greeting? It's like that.
Yeah. Well, all right, take your headphones off. But I saw your style described at the time as soulful pop R&B that you attributed to influences from Stevie Wonder and Michael Jackson. But let's listen to one of those. It became a radio single, Everlasting.
Before the mountains were born, before the sun ever shined, before the stars filled the heavens above, yeah. Before the universe was shaped by your hand, you would always been, I am. Everlasting, you are my God, you were and are and always will.
So what's a good Church of Christ boy doing,
In a place like this?
playing the piano? For those who don't know, it's a denomination famous for a cappella singing and has had knockdown dragouts over whether instruments should ever be used. And you play the piano, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, if you were kind of on this path, how did you end up, doing worship?
Well, I was not invited to most Churches of Christ to do a concert. In fact, my own hometown Church of Christ in New Jersey wouldn't let me do. They were proud of me, but they said, if you wanted, we'd love for you to do a concert, but you have to do a cappella. And it's tough to do an album a cappella, so I went in and recorded tracks of the instruments, like a Take Six or a cappella band.
You put them to the voice.
Yeah, just for that one, concert.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's how deep it runs, folks.
Yeah.
So was David Foster also Christian music when you were working with him, or was this like a transition to Christian music when you went to Michael W. Smith's label?
The deal with David was all pop stuff. It was all just the typical classic pop, David Foster pop stuff that he does. There is one song that's on that album that you just played called Broken, which David said is, and I don't mean to sound self-congratulatory, but he said it's one of the most beautiful songs he's ever heard, and he actually produced it on another artist named Christy Starling, who was an artist on Warner Brothers, which had a pop and Christian bent to it, which is part of how I got into the Christian world, because he pitched it to Warner Brothers Christian, and then he also pitched me to Michael W. Smith. And,
Well, Broken. The listeners can go catch up on that. Well, who got you into music? Was this just within you? How did you start singing, playing piano?
I will attribute a lot of my vocal interest to the Church of Christ, because the a cappella music in the Church of Christ is so beautiful. And my mom, when she was alive, would sing around the house, and I would just I thought I was learning. I was learning from her. I think knowing what I know now about more of my life and my background, there's some DNA that was at play.
Yes.
And I know we'll get to this later, but there's a fascinating case study of nature versus nurture in my life that I later learned was probably a driver in my musical interest.
Spoiler alert, he learned his mom is a famous opera singer because he was adopted. Anyway, we'll get to that. I'm Blake Farmer. This is Nashville. Our guest is George Rowe, a man of mystery as well as many talents. So when did your music career sort of start fading? Is it aligned with your coming out story, or was this all before that?
It was just before that. The label I was on, Rocktown Records, went out of business, and there were options that I could be picked up by its parent company. I think it was Sony, and be picked up by another one of the labels. But at that point, that's right around the time that I got the job offer from Pepperdine to be vice president, and I thought, should I go back into Christian music? Should I take the Tennessee bar and practice law here? Should I do something else? And that's when the vice president role at Pepperdine came, and that was sort of the lightning bolt that.
Well,
sparked everything.
how did your own identity as a closeted gay man um, uh, travel with you in the Christian music business?
Oh gosh, with shame and I felt like I was being such a hack on stage because I knew that if the audience knew the true me, I would be crucified. I would lose everything. So it was part of my white knuckling and putting myself out there, and I truly wanted to become like that. In the way that discipline can grow into character after trying and working at something, I thought that if I just tried and went through all the motions and made sure I, even the crass things like laughing at my straight buddies' jokes about gay people or their comments about a woman's body part, I would go along with it. And it was just, the whole thing was just, it made me sick to my stomach to be doing it on stage every night. I loved doing music. And there's something soulfully fulfilling about that, but it was just not the right context for me.
Well, I could imagine with all you've been through. I mean, a lot of these stories are, and he would never step foot in a church again. Not true for you.
No, I'm very much connected with a church community, Saint Bartholomew Episcopal Church here. It's a good group of people with a great moral compass, and they're great friends, great music, just good people. It's a good community for me.
If there's anything you could point to, again, because I think a lot of folks would hear the story and like, well, listen, your upbringing, Christian upbringing, conservative Christian upbringing is the reason you had to live through this life that you experienced for, almost 40 years. Why wouldn't you have more negative feelings toward that? Run the other way, go somewhere else. What is it that keeps you? What is it that, did you consider, going away?
Let me be clear. I've very much so deconstructed the faith that I grew up with. And it's very deconstructed and reduced now. St. Bees is a great community that I'm connected with. Mm-hmm. But I still have a problem with the church overall and its direction and its politicization. And
so if there's a thing that keeps you besides the music, the liturgy, whatever, what is it that is this just a place that provides community? Yeah,
community support. I'm confident that they're all a bunch of NPR nerds and they're going to be listening to this, and will be supportive. It's a good group of people.
Do you would you? I could imagine being in pop music might have made it much easier to be out, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Is it just as dangerous to come out as an artist? Pop music?
I think it's okay. I think it's okay now.
20 years ago, was it? 25 years ago?
I don't think so. 20 years ago.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
I just was thinking if you had stuck with the Whitney Houston crowd, does that story turn out differently?
Probably, especially 20 years later.
Mm.
Yeah.
What do you miss about your life as a musician?
Oh, I loved. It was a fun lifestyle. Especially coming out of the world of estate planning that I used to do.
It kind of makes going to law school for the birds.
From your dress code of no longer wearing a suit and tie to I'm a night owl, and a lot of the music stuff happens late at night. It was fun getting on a tour bus, traveling to a city, checking into a hotel, playing tours for the day, doing a sound check at 5, doing a concert, doing some press, signing autographs, getting back on the tour bus, hanging out with your bandmates until 3 a.m, and then crashing on the bus. And then it was fun. And we'd do that, and then we'd be away for chunks of time from our families, which was tough. We all hated that part of it. But then when we were home for weeks and weeks at a time. And I could coach soccer teams. I could be a chaperone on a field trip. I could be the dad getting dunked at the booth at the back to school carnival.
So this would have been the time when your 3 kids were young.
Yeah. Young. They were at Julie Green Elementary School at the time in those days. So I loved it. I just loved And when I was home, I would also treat my life as a business in terms of my writing schedule and recording schedule, and I would dedicate 8 hours a day to going to BMG's studio and just writing or co-writing with other artists, not just sitting around taking days off. I treat it like a job. But I absolutely loved that season of life. I thought it was a blast.
Yeah.
The lifestyle.
What kind of music do you end up, doing now? Do you perform much at all?
It's very selective now. I saw that you had Nashville Symphony Choir on recently.
Yeah.
I've performed with them a lot.
Like you're in the choir?
I'm not now, but I have been many times
I see.
through this post music season.
Is choir music something that you?
Oh my gosh,
Okay.
I love choral music.
Yeah.
I love.
Me too. That's why we had the show for one.
Yeah. In fact, the guy that I'm my partner right now, our first date, I took him to a choral music concert at St. B's Church, and he didn't know that's what we were doing. I just said, I'm going to a concert. You want to go with me? And he pulled up and we were like, wait, we're at a church? Are you taking me to church as a date? He's like, no, it's not church.
Classic Church of Christ. Sneaky first date.
Gotcha. And that's how they get you. I sang background vocals for Emmylou Harris on a project.
How did things even come up for you? I remember your name. You might have even played at Woodmont Hills sometime.
I did.
Would that have happened?
Yeah.
Because I went there when I was growing up here.
Yeah.
And I remember George Rowe. I was like, oh, George Rowe.
Yeah, that was my first couple of indie albums that I did before I got signed.
I see. People still know the name, George Rowe. We need to take one more break. When we come back, we've been holding this thing back. George Rowe investigates his birth parents, figures out why maybe these split passions of music and law should not be a surprise to us. Stay with us. This is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. As we're learning this hour, George Rowe may be one of the most interesting men in Nashville. He's lived many lives, musician, lawyer, realtor, and that's really not all. And at some point, he wanted to know more about his family of origin. He was confused by many things. He knew that he was adopted, but wasn't even sure about his own race and ethnicity. He knew his name was Keewa Eckelberger. Is that how you pronounce it?
So my first name was Keewa, Keewah. My middle name was Lee, Ly, and my last name was Eichelberger, Keewa Lee Eichelberger. That's the name that my biological mother gave me at birth that I went by for the years that I was in foster care before I was adopted. And when I was adopted, my parents named me George Rowe III.
And you were, as a child, you were aware of that name?
I was, yeah.
Because what age were you adopted?
I was around 2.
Okay, so you don't remember it, but you knew that you had another name.
Yeah, because my parents, whenever I say my parents, I'm referring to the parents who raised me. That gave me
in New
life.
Jersey.
Yeah, they always told me, and they always encouraged me to find my biological parents. They said, they always known that I'm insatiably curious. I used to be called Curious George as a kid because I just questioned everything.
Hadn't even come up with that, Curious George.
So they always said, if you ever want to know, we do know what your name was, and we know what city you were born in. That's all we know. But if we can help, we will.
There can't be too many Eichelbergers out there, although maybe in other parts of the country. So when did you decide that you really wanted to know more about your birth parents and kind of go down that track?
I tried and thought about it multiple times. I remember when I got married, I wanted to know in case my wife wanted to know health records about me. When we had kids several years later, I tried again.
Because they're asking questions like, what's your family history?
History of
I don't
heart
know
disease.
at all.
Yeah. When I was in law school, I even took classes like family law for the sole purpose of learning the adoption game to see how I could figure out, how to find my biological parents.
Well, is that complicated? I mean, I feel like these days, genetic testing makes it much easier to get around all the other rigmarole to find parents. But is their identity protected from you?
It was because in those days the adoptions were closed, and I think I was sitting at home watching TV and a commercial about adoption came on, and it occurred to me, I've never tried the state Division of Youth and Family Services, the state adoption agency.
Like in New Jersey.
Yeah, the New Jersey DIFAS it's called. And so I went to their website and saw that they have a program in which they connect adoptees to their biological parents. But the site wasn't working, the links weren't working. So I called them and said, hey, how do I participate in this program? They said, well, we'll have to email you an application. Just fill it out, send it back to us, then we'll start. But while we have you on the phone, we can ask you a few questions. What's your name, date of birth, adopted parents, and we'll just start your profile. And I said, there's one question you're not asking me, and the answer to that question could be pretty probative. I have a really unique name. I'm confident I'm the only person in the world with that name. And if that name is in your system, that's got to be me. The name is Kiwali Eichelberger. And so we hung up, and 5 minutes later, they called and said, oh, my gosh, you're right. Because you gave us that name, we found your info like that. It's here on microfiche. And we could see who your birth mom is, your birth dad is. We can't disclose anything to you until we get their consent to disclose anything personally identifiable about them. And we can't even start that process until another 6 months because there's 99 other files ahead of you. So in 6 months, we'll start the process of mailing out letters to people with their names in the cities where they last were in the year that you were born in 1970 and hope that one of them will get the letter and they'll agree to disclosing their name, none of which is likely to happen. But 6 months later, they called and said, okay, oh my gosh, we've researched you. We learned about your background. And we happen to see what your birth mom does and your birth dad does. And it's never like this interesting. And so I hope they're not listening because they could get in trouble for this. If you want, we can play this game right now of just like, you can ask us questions and we'll say wink, wink,
it's like
nudge,
20
nudge.
questions to find your mom.
So my first question was, all right, what the hell ethnicity am I? Like, I can tell I'm part black and Eichelberger is either Jewish or German, and Kiwali, when you Google that, you get references to a chain of Chinese bakeries in Hong Kong and Manhattan. So I grew up thinking I'm a black Chinese Jew in the Church of Christ. Like I was very confused. And they said, well, what ethnicity are your adopted parents? I said, they're both African American. She said, all right, well, your birth mother's also wink, wink. I said, oh, she's black. Okay, that means she can't be the Eichelberger because what black woman has a last name Eichelberger? And she said, you're wrong, actually. I'm like, wait a minute. She's a sister and her last name was Eichelberger? Okay, I'll file that away for questions later down the road. The next question, she said, I'll give you a clue. Your birth mom teaches at a very prestigious university on the East Coast. I said, all right, we're talking Harvard, Princeton, Yale. And she said, no, think about what's the most prestigious black university on the East Coast. I said, oh, Howard University. So at that point, I know that if I Google Eichelberger, Howard University, there aren't going to be that many Eichelbergers at Howard University. And so
maybe just one.
Yeah. So I found her like that. Like this whole thing took seconds to find. And I sat there for days just staring at her profile, reading her CV, downloading her music on iTunes because she's an opera singer and she teaches voice and music business at Howard University. And I spent 5 days composing this email to her, like very surgically dissecting my words, wanting to be sensitive and coming up with a subject line like, I'm back, or forget something, or it's me again, or like, what do you put? What? And I ended up just putting adoption of Kiwali Eichelberger, which was just direct, and she would know immediately what it is. And she got the email and wrote me back, oh my gosh, I've been looking for you your entire life, and I thought we would have found each other by now, and I didn't know if you'd still be alive, and she needed some time to process. And
but you're saying she wanted to know you as much as you wanted to know her.
Yeah.
And of course she did.
Yeah. And not knowing what ever came of me, if anything. So we ended up talking a few weeks later. She needed to process a lot. I'm sure she didn't know who I was or what. Am I after something? Do I have an agenda? Am I angry?
And you still didn't know the story of why you were put up for adoption.
Yeah. So we finally talked weeks later for hours and hours and hours with literally all the questions, like how tall are you? What's your date of birth? Who knows about me? Who's my birth father? Are you with my birth father? What's the origin story? And she said, I don't want to say anything about that because we were in a band back in 1969 and he was the drummer, she was the singer, and things went too far one night and she ended up getting pregnant. He was married at the time and she's not sure if he's still married and doesn't want to be the cause of any disruption in his life. And so you're just going to find him on your own. I was like, I've asked you for one thing, like one thing. And your answer is no. It's a pretty legit request too. Yeah. But I understood she was being very empathetic towards him. So I called the agency back and said, hey, I know that you know that I was going to be able to find her once I figured out deduced her name and where she worked. So I didn't need you to send out those letters to find her. And I found her, but she won't tell me anything about my dad. She said he was a drummer and they said, oh, we didn't know anything about that. And we'll add that to our file. And She also said he moved out west the year I was born, but I don't know where. It could be Seattle, Phoenix, L.A., and it's probably L.A. if he's a drummer and an attorney. She said, well, we'll add that to our file. In fact, we'll do a search right now with his name, which we're not going to say, and the word attorney and the word drummer and the word Los Angeles and see what we come up with. And boom, she finds it. And there's an article, and I think it was the L.A. Times, about him just releasing another album because he's a jazz musician and his jazz quartet just released something. And she's reading it to herself, but I can still make out the words she's saying.
Really?
So as if she's dictating to me, I'm Googling the words as she's speaking, knowing that it'll take me to that article.
Right.
And sure enough, I find it. And I then spend 3 days kind of forensically retracing his steps as an attorney in D.C. in 1970. And when he took the bar in Los Angeles was if it was the year I was born. And those all lined up. So I then mustered up the courage to call him and said, hey, you don't know this, but I'm your birth son, and here's why I think that.
Because obviously your mom knew. He didn't know.
She never told him, because she didn't need child support. She didn't want to ruin his marriage, so she never told him, so he never knew.
Wow.
So he gets this call out of the blue, which,
Yeah.
a lot of us could get at some point. And me saying I'm your biological son, and he's like, that's impossible. I would know if I had a son out there. Good luck in the church. Goodbye. And he hung up on me. And I called him back and said, why do you say with such conviction, with such certainty? Because I'm thinking did you withdraw? Did you use a condom? Are you sterile? Did you not have sex with? Like, how do you know? Why do you say with such certainty? And he said, well, before I answer any more of your questions, answer some for me. What's your name, date of birth? When was the last time you talked to your birth mom? And at one point he said, I don't even know if you are who you say you are. I don't even know what you look like. And I said, just Google the words George Rowe, and that's it. And the first several pages are going to be about me, or will mention me. And so he said, all right, here's an article in Billboard magazine about a guy named George Rowe who's an attorney and had this song on the charts. And is that you? I said, yes, like you. I'm an attorney musician. And he said, oh, my God, this photo. I got to go. And I think he saw a resemblance of himself in me, of his son, of my birth mom. But he called back a couple days later and said, hey, I called the adoptions agency. Your story checks out. And after we talked on Friday, I went home and confessed to my wife that A, I cheated on her, B, a child was born in infidelity, C, the child called.
30 years before, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we're talking more?
Almost 40. Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah, this was fairly recently. And she had a meltdown. I mean, understandably so. They're still together, and that was a lot for her to process. But it's all changed. It's all beautiful.
Well, yeah, and you even have a relationship with those siblings.
Oh, very much so. My brother and sister and I are very close. My birth father and his wife and I are very close. I sent her a Mother's Day card recently. I sent her a birthday card recently. He had his 88th birthday a couple weeks ago. I was out there for it, and his wife now brags from the mountaintops. Well, I've got this third kid now that I didn't know about, and life can be messy, but you love your way through the messiness.
His wife?
Yeah.
How beautiful. I'm Blake Farmer. This is Nashville. Our guest is George Rowe, and our time's wrapping up with him. We've taken listeners on your journey, and of course, not hit all of it, just some of the high points. But I just wonder if you could imagine sitting here under these bright lights, since we are recording for YouTube, telling your truth. You know what I mean?
No.
Talking about having a partner, a man, talking about your family, talking about, you haven't even brought this up, but that you are still connected with, you celebrate holidays with your ex-wife and your kids and your partner all together. Like, I don't know what. I'm guessing in those dark days, this seemed like an impossibility.
Absolutely, yeah. My best friend in the world, Rod, asked me in the very beginning days, dream big, like what do you want it to be like? And I thought, I could paint this picture, but that'll never happen. There's not a world in which any of these things that are now happening would happen. And it just took time, healing, forgiveness, growth, integration, working through things of myself, my ex-wife working through things, my kids working through things, all of us working through things together.
In other words, it wasn't going to be pretty overnight.
No, it was a year, several years long, and continues to be.
Yeah. What this second half. I mean, I guess we don't want to do the math about how long you'd have to live for this just to be the half. But like, what does love look like in the second half of life for you? That's different from the first half.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm dating my partner. His name's Mitch, and he's just a wonderful, lovely, kind, very zen, very down to earth, very balancing for me. Because my world can be pretty chaotic and frenetic. And I'll come home. He's my age, and he's semi-retired, and he had a great run at his career at Google, and it's just a really good balance for me. He knows how to just lower my temperature, and there's a martini and a charcuterie board waiting for me when I get home. And
All right, that's love, folks. That's love, folks. Well, what about, so much of this week of shows is about also intimacy, and I wonder, not to get graphic, I don't mean, but like, what does that look like now that maybe was missing before in kind of that connection that you have with another human?
Yeah, it's new, it's fresh, it's interesting. Mitch and I moved in together about a year ago, and I haven't lived with anybody since I lived with my wife 20 years ago.
Really?
So that's new. Like literally physically going to bed every night with somebody by my side is new. Even accounting for someone else's likes, preferences, schedule. It's not just me now. I'm not just watching the show I want to watch. I'm not just going to bed when I want to watch, when I want to. I'm not waking up when I want to. When he moved in, it's funny. I was at work, and his moving truck came and left before I got home. And when I walked in, there's dishes. There's a second blender and a second toaster oven and a second couch, and it was like, oh, we're doing this, all of which is great.
Right.
We found this great therapist in East Nashville who works with couples in this second season of life who are coming together after each has had different past relationships, and talks about how to meld those worlds financially, emotionally, family-wise. And we went to her, started seeing her probably 6 months before we moved in just to get ahead of those kinds of things. So that helped us also navigate this.
Well, so in other words, though, it's like, listen, you going through the same sort of life merger things that are going to happen, no matter what.
Yeah. Whether you're 22, which is how old I was when I got married, or now my age.
Yeah. Does anything excite you about this stage of life? Because so many people, you start to get worried about little health things or other parts of life. What excites you about this stage?
Oh gosh, it's funny. I remember being in my 20s thinking, people in their 40s and 50s are so old. Like, what do they know? They're not having fun. And I feel like I am at the top of my game right now. I work in real estate's great. I can do the music when and how I want. I took a sabbatical and went to Africa for an entire month last summer. Some friends and I just opened the Chloe Hotel in Nashville, which has been a lot of fun. I mean, I just feel like I'm at the top of my game and having so much fun right now, more fun than I've had in a long time.
Well, are you fearful of anything to come, as you kind of look at this stage of life?
Oh, I think it started with the reading glasses when I turned 42, and I'm at a point in life where I wake up with I go to bed, get a good night's sleep, and I wake up injured.
And this is 57, folks.
I broke an ankle. How did I break my ankle while I was just lying still in bed the entire night? Yeah, I don't have any health concerns. Mitch is incredibly healthy and is encouraging me to reduce my bacon intake or my burger intake or my pizza intake, and which is smart. But I look at my biological parents and see that birth dad's 88, sharp as a tack, still playing drums, funny, thinks like a 30-year-old attorney. Birth mom is still singing, performing, sharp as a tack. I feel like I'm inheriting some good genes. I feel good.
Well, we so appreciate you sharing a bit of your story with us, and I hope that you'll be back. George Rowe, a man of many talents, currently head of Compass Realtors in Nashville. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. We air these profile interviews each Monday. If you missed the Jug Sisters of Nash Trash Tour fame, well, that one's worth a listen to. Our conversation started off with a vibrator joke, and then off we went. We talked a little intimacy and romance in the second half of life, as well as getting the history of the Nash Trash Tour itself. They're open books. Listen in our podcast feed or at thisisnashville.org. Today's episode was produced by Josh Deepan. Tasha A.F. Limley's our managing editor. Liv Lombardi's making us sound and look good these days. The masterminds behind our theme music are Larange and Namir Blade. You can comment, tell us what you want to hear on the show by leaving us a message at 615-760-2000. You can also find us on Instagram at thisisnashville_WPLN. I'm Blake Farmer. Go in peace.